Joining us now on the line is former Virginia Governor Tim Kaine. He is a candidate for the United States Senate of Virginia, one of the most closely and contested races in the nation. The outcome could determine who's in charge of the United States Senate come January. Will it be Harry Reid of Nevada, current majority leader, or will it be Mitch McConnell? That might come right down to Tim Kaine. Governor, thanks for joining us today.
John, it's great to be back with you today. It really is.
If I could start, I want to go politics, Governor, and then policy in the short amount of time that we have. Let's start with politics. I mean, this thing has been tied forever. What is your sense right now, Governor, of where this race is?
John, you're right. I mean, this is a comically close race. Politico does a ranking every month, 10 closest Senate races, and for 15 of the last 18 months, ours has been the closest race in the country. What we've seen in the last 2 weeks is a series of polls that for the first time have had me ahead. There have been about 10 polls in the last 2 weeks, and it's been anywhere from tied to having me up as much as 10. I don't believe the 10 number, but I do think we pulled ahead just a little bit, and the reason is that we were getting bombed by super PAC ads since November of 2011, but we didn't put our first ad up on TV till August 23rd. So for a long time, we were just out there, kind of playing rope-a-dope. But we started to go up on TV, and we've gone up with very positive ads. And this makes me feel good about Virginians that 4 weeks of positive ads have done what 10 months of negative ads couldn't do, which is they've broken the deadlock a little bit. But I have a feeling that this thing is still very, very close, margin of error, back and forth. Every day has a new twist and a new turn. And so we have a plan, and we're just kind of executing on the plan, and it'll be close, but I like where it is right now.
Okay, now we do have to bring up the fact, Governor, that you've had a phenomenal fundraising quarter. You outraised Governor Allen. What happened?
Well, we have we built a huge base to a pyramid, John, is what's happened. We now have significantly over 40,000 donors to the campaign. 70% of our donations in this last quarter that ended September 30, we raised about $4.5 million. 70% of the donations were donations of under $200, and I'm really proud that our fundraising in Virginia is incredibly strong. So it's at the end of the day, it's not money, it's votes, and we have a huge edge on the other side when it comes to the super PACs that just run these negative ads nonstop. So when you add all the money up, I still think we're going to get outspent. But at least in our own campaign, we've had very vigorous fundraising. Well,
and you've also got people on the street. If I can, Governor, beg your indulgence here for 1 minute and share a story that happened to me on Sunday over the weekend. It's about 3:30 p.m. I'm at the house. I'm watching a football game. And there's a knock on the door. My 8-year-old son answers and says, "Daddy, there's somebody who wants to talk to you." And I'm like, 3:30 on a Sunday. I got to get up from the football game, and it was a canvasser came to my door and asked me if I was John and if my wife was there. She obviously had the registration thing on her. Now, what was interesting is she was not canvassing for the Democrats. She was canvassing for the Tim Kaine for Senate campaign, and she had a stack of your stuff to hand out. But what I thought was fascinating with it is that she went to the house. Both Ann, my wife, and I have a Mitt Romney Ryan bumper sticker on her vehicle. That didn't deter her, but we've also got a sticker on the front door of our home. So
we give a Star Student of the Week award in the Kain campaign. We got to find out who that is.
You got to find out, because it was she was completely undaunted by that. Knocked on the door, identified herself, asked me if I would consider voting for Tim Kaine for Senate. And I said, sure, hand this stuff out. What blew me away was that, she sees the big sticker on my front door, and she says, "Well, I see you're for Governor Romney." And I said, "I am. I'm not voting for President Obama." She said, "Well, I just want you to keep in mind, as you're voting for Mitt Romney for president, remember that Tim Kaine is the true fiscal conservative in this race. And also, if Mitt Romney wins, he's going to need people in the Senate to work with him across the aisle. And Tim Kaine has a very rich history of that." And she says, by the way, so does the governor. He had to work with a lot of Democrats to get things done in Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. And my jaw dropped. Wow. I'm like, okay, that's pretty fantastic. You have to find out who that person is.
I've got you. Well, we really are. I mean, there was no intent to send somebody to your particular house, but we are trying to go everywhere we can and win every vote we can. And on two basic messages, John, I've been on with you before. I think Congress is broken because we got to have more people who are fiscally responsible, and we have to have more people who know how to work together. Those are the two things that we need to put more people into the Senate who have that understanding. I've had a record mayor and a governor of a guy who is fiscally responsible. His governor had to cut $5 billion. I ended up with a smaller state general fund budget than when I started. But while I was cutting, I was also making investments. I cut taxes as governor, the estate tax, and I took a lot of low-income Virginians off the income tax rolls. I also proposed tax increases to fund transportation. I feel like it's about balance. That cutting or adding is never the only right answer. You have to balance things. You have to balance the nation's balance sheet, and I think the way to do that is you have to look at both sides of the balance sheet if you're going to bring it into balance. But that's what I'm going to do if I'm in the Senate, and then I do have a track record of working together. I was a nonpartisan mayor in Richmond in a very diverse city, bringing people together to cut crime and grow the economy and clean up the James River. And then as a governor, I worked with 2 Republican houses my first 2 years, and we won a lot of accolades, not for Tim Kaine, but because we knew how to work together. And when you look at a Senate that, 2 weeks back, there was a filibuster to block a veterans' jobs bill that was widely praised and desired by everybody, a House that 2 months ago took a bipartisan farm bill that passed through the Senate and just deep-sixed it till after the election. We got to find people who know how to work together in Washington.
Now, what do you think of Senator Mark Warner's Gang of 6 now to expand to the Gang of 8, kind of this infamous group, the senator trying to kind of reinvigorate that Gang of 6 to try to figure out how to solve some of these problems we have. But, it's come under fire from a lot of conservatives saying, they're compromising their principles. But in my view, I thought that the Gang of 6 back in the former cycle had some answers that nobody took seriously.
They do. Well, I'm glad to see it's now a Gang of 8. And the other thing is there's about 20 or 25 senators of both parties who are sort of allies. We're going to help them out. And I'll tell you, if I get elected, John, I'm going to pick the Republican senator elected the same day that I am, another freshman, who I have the most in common with, and I'm going to try to add 2 more people to the gang. I just think what the Senate needs is these bridge-building efforts. You'll remember that when John Warner was in the Senate, proud Republican, he was the leader of a gang of 14 that was trying to do the same thing. He and Senator McCain on the Republican side and others on the Democratic side, they were trying to break through log jams, largely about appointment issues. But again, Virginians want their senators to be part of the gang. It was interesting when John Warner was doing it. Not everybody liked compromise, and he was getting grief for doing it too. But he did it anyway, and I'm going to be part of whatever the gang is, whether it's 6, 14, 98, or 1.5 that's trying to build bridges. I'm going to be part of it.
What if that Republican freshman senator that wins is in majority and it's Todd Akin? Would you reach out to him?
Well, and look, I'm going to reach out to everybody. Now, I don't know Todd Akin, and obviously his comments over the course of the last few months are comments that I find highly, highly distressing and outrageous. I don't think he's the guy that I'm most likely to build a bridge with, given some of his points of view. But I do know a lot of the Republicans that are running. I mean, there's going to be a lot of newcomers coming into the Senate this year, both Democratic and Republican. I know a lot of them, having served as lieutenant governor and governor and national party chair. I've met people in my travels, and I'm not going to have any trouble finding partners. All you have to do to find partners on this side, just go next door. Tennessee's a neighboring state. Lamar Alexander and Bob Corker, both very, solid Republicans, but they both have a really good track record of on issues that where there's compromise working together with Democrats. We got to have more people like them.
Okay, why don't we go quickly to foreign policy, the Libya situation. There's been a lot of spin coming out of the Obama administration. Now we find that there were documents that have emerged, and it really smells and looks to me like there's a potential cover-up in place. If you're elected as a Democrat, would you be willing to pursue an investigation on exactly what went down there and what the administration knew and when they knew it?
Yeah, John, we've got to get to the bottom of it. I'm less, frankly, the spin and the cover-up and all of that I'm less interested in than what happened, because if a U.S. ambassador was killed, then mistakes were made. They might have been mistakes that nobody would have thought of in any embassy in the world up till then, but nevertheless, things happen that we can correct, and we owe it to Ambassador Stevens' family to correct them. But this was my attitude after the shooting at Virginia Tech. The shooting happened when I was governor. I put a panel in place within 2 days of experts from a number of disciplines, none of whom had any connection either to Virginia Tech or any of the victims. And I said, I want you to turn this thing topsy-turvy and find out everything you can about what happened, what went wrong, and especially, most especially, what we can do to fix it to reduce the chance that this will ever happen again. And that's the important thing. I know the administration has undertaken that review very seriously, and I think it is incredibly important for the relevant committees of Congress to do the same thing. Because, again, maybe it was something that went wrong that could have happened in any embassy of any country anywhere in the world, but now that it's happened, we've got to understand how it happened and do all we can to prevent it from ever happening again.
Okay, we want to thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us, Governor. We will have you back on. Thank you, sir.